And we're going to use this clear view mold of a key and a lock. Pretty simple stuff. Now the mold, because of the intricate design, you're going to be doing a lot of like tearing and pushing away. So for the key, you want to make a nice long log. That's probably too big. And have it kind of tapered at one end. And you're going to push it in. And what I love about these clear molds is that you can see what you're doing. Whoops, that came popping right out. You're going to push it in. You can see what you're doing from the back. So I know that how much I can pull away without disturbing my piece. Now you can use a little bit of, some people like to use cornstarch in their molds. I prefer to use Crisco or Trex or something like that, because I'm afraid that I'm not going to pick up all the detail that the cornstarch is going to get in there. So I can see that this is pretty much covered. And then I'm going to go in, I've got a tiny little piece right there that didn't get a little top. And it's extremely thin up there, so you don't want to add too much. And then the next piece is your lock. And because of the way it goes out, you could do it two different ways. You could either make a ball and bring it out, or you could make a ball and two little sausages. I find it's easier just to push the whole thing around, like so, knowing that I'm going to be pulling away a lot. Obviously, you know, there's a hole in the lock here, and you're going to pull this away. You're going to tear this away. But these molds are really cool to use. Like I said, I can see everything that I'm doing. So I don't bore you. You get the idea. Then you're going to put it in the freezer for a good minute. And after that, we're going to unmold. So here are my molds of the key and the lock, or the lock and the key. We're just going to put them on with a little bit of royal icing, about right there. I don't, as you noticed in the other one, I didn't have it laying flush because my cupcake is rounded on the top. And you want to use a stiff consistency icing, of course. And be gentle with these molds. The little sides here are really, really fragile. And then you can kind of see where you're going to put your key, because you're going to make a little chain to go with your key. So add a little bit of royal icing to the bottom half of the key. You don't really want to add it to the top half. It's too fragile and you don't want to risk breaking it. Okay. So now we're going to make our chain. Let's make sure that I have enough room for that chain. All right. So the chain's going to come from under here and around. And to make our chain, you're going to start right about here, because your chain's going to come, a line's going to come from underneath there, like there's another link. So you're going to start your first link about 5 millimeters away. And you kind of want to make an oval shape. And just let gravity do what gravity does, and pipe your little oval. Go in and pat that down. You're not really going to see it once we get the links in. You want to make sure, and these ovals to me are like more of an oval square. It's not quite an oval, but however you want it to be, just all the same size. And you want to make sure that they connect, they touch one another. You don't want to overlap, because that's what your link is for. And my chain is kind of coming up and around a little bit. You can swag your chain as long as it looks like it's connecting. And you've kept a nice open hole for your link. So the first link is going to start underneath your lock and come into the center of your first hole. You want to, I didn't explain how to do that, so I will right now. You want to start with a burst of even pressure, lift it up, just like you're doing a string, except this is stiff consistency. Release your pressure as you come down and put it into the center. And same thing. So you give the illusion of a nice little link. If you get a little teeny peak, you just go in with your lightly dampened brush and put that down. So you want to make sure you're going from center to center. And that one was too big, so we're going to get that off. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just tuck him in. I think he'll be fine. Yeah, he's fine. Okay. And then to connect it to the key, what you're going to want to do is come in through the hole of the key, and my key is moving on me, come down over the top, keeping constant pressure as you come, and let it drop in the center of the hole that's right underneath your key. I'm just going to push that in and make sure my key stops moving. And then the next thing that I did is I just piped some pretty designs up here of teardrops. So you want to do, we're going to scratch pipe. So you want to make a burst of pressure and scratch pipe as you release down. And I've explained scratch piping before. Literally, as you're releasing down, you're scratching against your surface. And I had already covered my cupcake in my fondant and added my snail's trail, because you've seen me add snail's trails so many times before. So you just want a nice little pretty design. I'm going to put one more here. I think I have one more in the other one. Now you want to let your fondant dry at least 4 hours, if not overnight. So I'm going to show you how we paint this. So I decided to paint my key, my lock, and my chain in silver. So we're going to mix up a little bit of silver luster dust and 2 drops of Everclear. And this is another guessing game. And as you can see, that's way too thick. So we're going to need a little bit more. I'd rather start out with too little than too much. That's better. You want kind of a thick consistency, but not so thick that it's going to clump up on you. I'm using a 2-0 brush, and that's for the little parts of the lock and the key. If I was just doing something as large as just the lock part, not this design part, you could go with a bigger brush. And you just want to go in, and since it's a soft brush, you should be okay. But do remember that we are not up against the fondant on this. We're suspended, so you want to be gentle because it could snap right off on you. And I like to get my fragile sides first to get them out of the way. And you want it to be a pretty deep silver. It's a nice antique lock. It's almost a pewtery color. It's not a bright silver. So you want to kind of accentuate that a little bit. And then outline the lock part, the actual little lock right here before you go in and paint. Think of it as outlining when you're coloring. And then you can just go ahead and color the rest of this, and I will finish doing the lock and bring you in to show you the chain and the key. So I've got my first layer on the lock, and there is some streak marks. I don't like to go over it until it's completely dry, or I'll just make a mess and it'll keep streaking. To do the chain, you can do it a couple different ways, and whichever one you want is perfectly fine with me. You can do the links, or you can do the little, I don't know if this is the link or the chain, the little piece that we piped in the middle. And these are the links and that's the chain. But you can do it any way you want. Just make sure that you get underneath all the little nooks and crannies and you don't have any white showing. And this is where, I don't know if you can see, I don't know if I had it turned so you could see, but this is where the chain's going to pop out, because before it was just white against the pink cupcake, so it was a little bit hard to see how it was going to look. I'm going to turn it right here just so I can get underneath to get this little circle or oval. And if you find that you get a little streak that you haven't gotten it covered the first time around, like already my lock is dry, I could go back right now and go over it if I wanted to. But just wait about a minute and you can go back over it. But if you try and play with it while it's still wet, you'll just keep streaking and streaking and streaking. So for the key, I go ahead and I do this raised little part of the key first. And then I come in and I do the decorative handle of my key. And again, you want to be careful with this because it is, and I get the last little link that I didn't get. But you want to be careful with this because it is fragile. It's much thinner than the rest of that key, which is pretty solid. So a ginger touch is required for that. And it's a pretty old-fashioned key, so that's why I was either going to go with an old gold or a silver, and I thought silver and pink go so pretty together that I would do the silver. And I realized I've shown so many embellishments with the gold that it was time for silver. So I will finish doing my key, go back over any of the spots I have to go through, and show you how we do our little scratch piping. Alright, so I've gone over my lock again with the second coat, and the streaking is now gone. And I'm just going to go in and paint the little designs I did with the scratch piping with this pink. And it's coming out a little bit dark, but when it dries, it actually ends up lightening up quite a bit. And that's just so that it matches the beading and my fondant. I thought if I had made the embellishment, the scratch piping embellishment silver, it would take away from my lock and key. It would just be a little too much silver. So that's it. You're chained to my heart now. Or whoever you give the cupcake to will be chained forever to your heart. Thank you.